Good morning, everyone. This is the time and place for the Planning Hearing Officer hearings for October 29th, 2014. My name is Kristen Asp, and I will be conducting the hearing as Planning Hearing Officer. We have one case today, and all relevant exhibits are posted on the panels located directly behind me. We have one parking reduction permit on the agenda, and if the evidence presented in the application and at the hearing meets the criteria, the planning hearing officer can either approve or impose conditions for approval on the case in question. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Public notice. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices, which were mailed to property owners located within 500 feet, property owners and occupants within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question and placed in the local newspaper. The hearing will proceed as follows. I will read the description of the application request. I will read any relevant reports from other city departments, or note other letters of communications from interested parties, and then I will ask the case planner to make a brief overview of the case. The applicant will then be asked to come forward stating both name and address, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time limit. Others in support of or in opposition to the application and interested parties will be asked to come forward to speak, again, clearly stating both name and address, and they will have a 3-minute time limit. Lastly, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make any closing comments if desired in response to testimonies given by preceding speakers within a 5-minute time limit. The hearing will then be closed and the case taken under submission. As far as a decision, after the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at this hearing or by submitting written responses and have provided their name and mailing address. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter, not necessarily the date of this hearing. Appeals. Under the appeal provision of Title 30 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the decision date. Again, this is the date on the letter, and the notice of appeal shall be filed with Building and Safety or the Planning Department located here at the Municipal Services Building. And appeal forms are also available online and next door at the public counter. For a speaker card, if you wish to speak, please write your name and address on one of the speaker forms that have been provided at the front door. I would also like to inform everyone that the official proceedings of the Planning Hearing Officer's hearings are recorded on tape as part of the public record. So, moving on with the case. This is a parking reduction permit, case number 1421912. It is located at 1146 North Brand Boulevard. The applicant is Rodney Kahn, and the project description is an application for a parking reduction permit to allow a 1,115 square foot surgical center addition to an existing 3,097 square foot medical office building without providing the 5 required additional parking spaces. Okay, I'll let staff correct this in a minute. Located at 1146 North Brand Boulevard in the C3 Commercial Service Zone, described as Lot 4, tract number 1970. This does say that the existing parking will remain. I am going to take this opportunity for making notes from other divisions. There was nothing really significant from any other departments, but I will point out that in discussing the site plan with the building official, there will need to be an ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, upgrade to one of the parking spaces, which will result in the loss of one parking space on the west side of the lot, and that is allowed by our code for when upgrades are required for ADA purposes. I will also note that we did get one letter. I believe it was emailed in opposing this project for a reduction in parking. So at this time, I will turn it over to Ms. Duarte, the case planner, and she'll briefly go over it and I guess make any minor corrections.
Okay, thank you, Hearing Officer Asp. As I'd first like to mention that a correction to the public notice and also the description that you had just gone over, that the application was to allow a 1,115 square foot surgical center addition to an existing 1,982 square foot existing medical office building. The total square footage would be the 3,097 square feet.
Thank you for that correction. That's important.
Yeah. And I apologize for the error. So as noted, there is an existing one-story, 1,982 square foot existing building on an 8,037 square foot rectangular shaped lot. The building was constructed in 1952 as a professional building, and in 1993 there was an addition to that building for a dental office with 10 parking spaces. Records show that the building has been used for the practice of oral surgery in 1980, and beginning in 2008 it was used as a medical office and continues to be used as such. There are 10 non-conforming parking spaces, and you noted at the rear of the property. Access to the parking spaces provided by a 10-foot wide driveway at the north end of the property. And the driveway entrance is on Brand Boulevard. As noted, 5 additional parking spaces would be required for the addition. The applicant is proposing to maintain the parking as approved in the previous permits. The surrounding uses are a mix of medical office and office, with the residential properties behind to the east. As you noted, the comments from other departments, staff is able to find the required findings as noted in the staff report to grant the parking reduction permit. That's all I have. If you have any questions.
Not at this point. Thank you, Ms. Duarte. At this time, I would like to call the applicant up to tell us about this project and go over the findings.
Great. Good morning, Ms. Asp, city staff. My name is Rodney Kahn. My offices are located at 1111 North Brand Boulevard, Suite 403, here in the city of Glendale. I'm actually across the street from where this project is located.
Okay.
As Ms. Duarte pointed out, we're proposing to add a new surgical center to the existing medical office building. This new surgical center space is only used for one surgery at a time. Also, the medical office space is not operational when the surgery center is being used. The medical offices are used, and when they are being used, the surgical center is closed. The days of the week and the hours of the operation for this facility will be Monday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., Wednesday and Thursday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, on occasion, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. The facility is used for surgeries predominantly on Wednesday and Thursday afternoon, and occasionally on a Saturday morning. The remainder of the time, this new floor space is not used. Based on the above-mentioned information, we're explaining why the parking need for our use is not as great as other similar land uses. I gave an exhibit that I'd like to point out to. It's on the upper right-hand side. And what that exhibit shows is it shows a colored area where the surgical center is taking place. And this surgical center is self-contained. It has its own reception area. It has its own seating area, separate from the rest of the medical office building. The square footage for the surgical center is actually a little bit larger than the addition. So it will be a total of 1,237 square feet. The medical office space will be approximately 1,860 square feet. The reason I point this out is if you applied your current parking standards to each of these uses, because as I mentioned, they do not operate simultaneously. They operate independently. One is open, one is closed. For the surgical center of 1,237 square feet, we would only be required 6 parking spaces. For the medical office space at 1,860 square feet, we'd be required by code a total of 9. So either way, we are able to provide the code-required parking if they were separate and independent, but since it is one building, that's where the request comes into play. I'd like to point out, in terms of the function or operation and regulation of the surgical center, obviously the City of Glendale regulates this from a zoning, planning, building, engineering perspective, but there's also other governmental agencies that do as well. The Medicare operations has a compliance section that regulates this. Obviously, the local fire department regulates this, along with an accreditation group, a life safety group, and a whole institutional occupancy group that regulates this surgical center as well. So it is a separate, unique, individual type facility that's regulated by a number of different governmental agencies. That's very different than a typical medical office building is. How has the intent of the parking regulations been met? The intent of the parking regulations is to provide sufficient off-street parking for a land use so that adjacent land uses are not negatively impacted and public safety is maintained. As stated above, we can provide more than sufficient parking. It's important to note, and we haven't taken this into consideration, but directly in front of the building, there's also on-street parking, or off-site parking, however you want to say that. Directly in front of our building, there are 6 spaces. The City of Glendale has signs that are posted that requires a maximum of 2-hour parking along Brand Boulevard, actually on both sides up and down Brand Boulevard. So you will see turnover taking place in those parking areas. There is parking available. I've been there, I've mentioned about 15 years across the street. It does get busy. Those parking spaces are used, but there is turnover, and they are available as well. However, we are not taking that into consideration in this request. It's just an observation. Explain how the existing parking demand is currently provided and why it's sufficient to serve the uses. I think Ms. Doherty pointed out this facility for 30 plus years has been used as either a surgical type center or for medical offices. And there's never been a problem or impact on the surrounding neighborhood at all for that type of a use. The building, the entire building, is occupied by the owner who is here. He is also the owner of the building and the owner of the businesses. So he will never have a time where there will be any need for us to have more than the required parking. We had talked about 10 parking spaces, but you had mentioned that the building code was talking about upgrading a space to make it handicap accessible, shifting it, adding that loading area. Even with that additional 1 space reduction, it should cause us no problem whatsoever in operating this facility. There's a section that needs to be addressed where we did an observation, and it's from Monday. It's a weekday count from 6 a.m. to midnight, and that information has been provided. We originally did that count at 10 spaces, saying that there were some peak times at a few different areas. The reality being is we will not be operating at the peak times, and 9 spaces, actually even 8 spaces, would be sufficient for our need. The same is true for a Saturday. It says it must be a weekday and a weekend count. For Saturday, as I mentioned, it's only open on occasion. It's open from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. At no time during those times did we exceed 8 required parking spaces. And as you know, in that area, most of the businesses are closed on the weekends. So in terms of parking We will handle all of our parking employees, the visitors, everybody else will be on our site. We don't need to factor in any off-site, but obviously on the weekends there's far more parking in the street than there is during the week. Last, describe the parking requirement established in the zoning code and why it's actually greater than what actually is needed. The zoning ordinance determines parking in part based on the square footage of the building and not on the actual demand that is created or not created. One of the things I wanted to give you as an exhibit is the fact that in this facility, not only is it complementary used where one medical office or the surgical center is not operated at the same time, but actually there's very large pieces of medical equipment, and I'd like to hand that to you. And the reason I hand that to you is to show you that these large pieces of equipment are throughout the operational facility. You do not have a lot of space or room in terms of for other types of equipment or facilities. It's simply just a surgical type center where one doctor performs surgery on one patient. We've had a chance to work with your staff also on the design of the building. We've worked with Mr. Wardy and the design studio and received their approval for the building addition, the architectural treatment of the building, landscaping proposed. We did some modifications and requirements and suggestions that they gave us. We followed them and actually came up with a very nice building addition on the front in terms of the design of the building. I will conclude my remarks by saying that we reviewed the conditions of approval, all 10 of them, and we agree to comply with all of them. Okay. That will conclude my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. I do have one other speaker card. For Harry, do you want to speak or do you want to?
Sure.
So we'll do that, and then if I have any questions, I'll
Thank you.
call you back up. Thank you. Harry, please state your name for the record.
Good morning. I am Harry Hovanesian. I'm the owner of the property and a founder of Specialty Eye Care, which was founded in 2000 in Glendale, and we're currently located at 409 North Central in Glendale. Okay. Our intention is to use this new facility as a surgery center and adjacent office just for small operational use. We will keep our 409 location operating, and in the near future you'll get a permit for big sign at 409 location for Specialty Eye Care. Okay. So I wanted to mention one more time, it's mainly surgery center where we have just one operating room and one doctor who's going to perform surgery during working hours. The office part of the building is, as Mr. Khan mentioned, will be used on different days when surgery center is not operational. We will improve the property. We have very nice addition, and obviously we're going to add landscaping to current building as well. And as I mentioned, I like to thank city staff for letting us have this opportunity to build our surgery center. And if you have any questions, I can answer those questions.
So you mentioned that you already have another place at 409 Central.
Correct.
And what is that office like? There's no surgeries there.
There is no surgery center there. It's just an office which sees patients on a daily basis.
People come get their eyes checked and get glasses, contacts, that kind of thing,
yes, okay. Optometry and ophthalmology.
Okay. And so this would be a first for you, the surgery center?
Correct.
And you said one doctor would be performing the surgeries?
One doctor and one patient.
And then what kind of support staff kind of goes along with
Scrub
surgery
nurse,
days?
scrub nurse, and RN.
Okay. And so on Wednesday, Thursdays, and sometimes on Saturday mornings, people are coming in and that's just a surgery day.
Correct.
Correct?
Yes.
And then on the other days, the Mondays, Tuesday, Friday, people are doing like post-op follow-up, or why else would they be coming there on the, like, describe the Monday, Tuesday, Friday kinds of appointments?
Usually we see about 4 patients per hour, and Monday and Tuesday and Friday, those will be days where one doctor will see, they will have their own clinic. Support staff for that doctor will be technician to screen the patients, and obviously front desk people. Usually we use 1 or 2. Those days, 4 patients per hour will be seen during those days.
And the Monday, Tuesday, Friday, is that the same doctor that is also maybe doing surgery, or
No.
they're different people?
Different
Okay.
doctors.
Okay. Could they be the same person?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
So would multiple doctors be able to perform surgery there? I mean, have rights
not
to, or
the
have-
same day. Not the same day.
Correct.
Not the same day. So every single operating day will be designated for one doctor.
Okay.
Okay, and usually those are about, maybe I would say, maximum 6 to 7 cases a day.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Then I guess maybe a breakdown question related to staff, and I don't mind who answers. How many average staff on non-surgery days, and how many average staff people will be on surgery days?
About 4.
On all days? So
Correct.
Okay. Plus a doctor.
Plus a doctor.
Okay. Don't know if I had any other questions. Give me 1 second. Just out of curiosity, I know adjacent to the property, there's another, I believe is it a dental office next door? They have their own parking lot, and while you share a driveway, would there ever be an opportunity that anybody could maybe park on either side, or is that going to be left up to the two of them?
Ms. Asp, I think what you're referring to is there's directly north of us, it's a dental facility. What they currently have is they have their own driveway. It's actually their own separate lot. There's not a cross easement condition going
Okay.
on.
Okay.
It's just a wide driveway. And so they have their own separate parking to the back. We have our own separate parking to the back. So it's not our intent to share parking.
Okay.
We don't need to share parking with them, nor would we want their patients to take up our parking spaces.
Okay.
So it's separate and independent.
Okay, just
Sure.
wanted to clarify that. Okay. I think those are all the questions that I have. I will take this case under submission, and the hearing is now officially closed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming.